Good morning, students. This is fifth part of the chapter The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck. And in my last video, I have already explained you that Dr. Sadao was not able to throw the man prisoner of war into the sea. Okay, and he reasoned that if the man was well, he would hand him over to the police without any hesitation. Fine. And he added that he was not concerned about the man and considered him to be an enemy as he was an American. So finally, Hannah and Sadao took a decision. Okay, and they lifted the injured man into the house. Okay, and he was very light. The writer compares his weight to that of a hen that has not been fed for a long time. Means सदा और हना ने prisoner of war को अपने घर ले जाने का क्या किया, उन्होंने डिसाइड किया. Why? Because first reason is that they could not throw him back into the sea because he was injured, and being a doctor, Sadao could not take this decision. Then finally both of them lifted that man and shifted him to his father's room. So from here we have to start. Okay, so thus carried together, they lifted the man. He was very light like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time until it is only feathers and a skeleton. So his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps and into the side door of the house. This door opened into a passage, and down the passage they carried the man towards an empty bedroom. Why? Because Sadao's father was no more in this world. It had been the bedroom of Sadao's father, and since his death it had not been used. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Why? Because everything here had been Japanese to please the old man, who would never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep in a foreign bed. Hannah went to the wall cupboards and slid back a door and took over a soft quilt. She hesitated. The quilt was covered with flowered silk and lining was pure white silk. So over here we have to understand it that both of them shifted him to the bedroom, and the bedroom belonged to Sadao's father and had not been used after his death. The injured man was laid on the thick mat on the floor because Japanese don't prefer to use beds. Okay, the writer describes the room. Writer ने describe किया room का. Everything in the room was Japanese as Sadao's father disliked foreign things. Hannah went to the cupboard in the wall and took a soft quilt. She resisted putting it on the injured man. वो नहीं चाहती थी उसको वो soft रजाई उसको cover करे. Why? Because the quilt was made of silk, had a flowery print on it, and the lining was made of pure white silk. Fine. Then we would come to know, he is so dirty, she murmured in distress. He is so dirty. She was sad and spoke slowly that the man was very dirty. Okay, and yes, he had better be washed. Sadao agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. So Sadao said that the man, isko नहलाना जरूरी है. Sadao asked Hannah to get hot water so that he could wash the man. Now here you can see in this para, I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. We shall have to tell the servants he is here. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Yumi कौन है यहाँ पे? Yumi is their maid servant है वो. ठीक है? And Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so. He agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. But the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. It was faint, but it was there. He put his hand against the man's cold breast. The heart was yet alive. He will die unless he is operated on. So thou said, considering. The question is whether he will not die anyway. Hannah cried out in fear, don't try to save him. What if he should live? So what happened over here? They had shifted the man, means prisoner of war, into into the room. Now Hannah told that he was very dirty. Then Sadao decided to wash him. But Hannah told that she would tell Yumi to wash him. Okay. So now then Sadao told that he might die without an operation. But Hannah resisted and she told that he would not touch him and don't try to save him. What if he should die, if he should live, कि अगर ये जिंदा रहेगा तो क्या होगा, इसको तुम्हें टच नहीं करना है. Fine. So over here we will come to know that Sadao commented that if man was not operated upon, he would die. He added that even if was operated upon and saved, he would die at the hands of the Japanese army. Okay. So over here we will see that Hannah went to Yumi. Okay, fine. Hannah went to Yumi and informed her, and Sadao went to other servants to inform them. Fine. So start from here. That he is so dirty, she murmured in distress. Yes, he had better be washed. Sadao agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. We shall have to tell the servants he is here. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so, he agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. Fine. But the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. It was faint, but it was there. He put his hand against the man's cold breast. The heart too was yet alive. He will die unless he is operated on, Sadao said, considering. The question is whether he will not die anyway. Hannah cried out in fear. Don't try to save him. What if he should live? What if he should die? Sadao replied. Okay, fine. So over here she was sad. Hannah was sad and spoke slowly. धीरे से बोलती है. The man was very dirty. Sadao said that the man had to be washed. Sadao ने कहा इसको नहलाना जरूरी है. Sadao asked Hannah to get hot water so that he could wash the man. Hannah did not want that Sadao should touch the man. She said that they would ask the servant to wash the injured man. She would call Yumi to leave attending the children for a few minutes and wash him. Fine. Sadao considered a moment. Okay, Sadao thought for a moment and then agreed with Hannah. He asked her to call Yumi. ठीक है, Yumi को बुलाओ, while he would call the other servants before he could go out. But the utter pallor of man unconscious face, क्योंकि वो आदमी बेहोश था, तो Sadao would like to know कि वो जिंदा है कि नहीं है. Before he could go out, he saw the injured man's face. It was so pale that he stopped, bent forward and felt his heart beat to see if he was alive. The heartbeat was very faint, but it was there. Then Sadao placed his hand on the man's heart to feel it. It was beating. उसका दिल धड़क रहा था. Sadao concluded thus that the injured man was alive. कि ये जिंदा है. Okay. He will die unless he is operated on. Sadao commented that if the man was not operated upon, he would die. Okay. And he added that even if was operated upon, the question is whether he will not die anyway. क्या कि अगर उसका ऑपरेशन हो गया तो कौन मार देगा उसको? जापानीज आर्मी मार देगी. सो इधर वेज ही वुड डाई. तो कोई भी हो, रास्ता कोई भी हो, बट ही वुड डाई, कि उसको मरना है. Hannah cried out in fear. Don't try to save him. Hannah screamed with fear and asked Sadao not to save the man. She feared that if he lived, they would be in danger. क्योंकि उसको पता है कि prisoner of war है, जापानीज आर्मी से भागा हुआ है, और अगर ये बच गया तो वो डेंजर में आ जाएंगे. What if he should die? Now here you can see what if he should die. It means what if he should die. What if he should die means what? That Sadao replied, he stood gazing. Sadao replied, he stood gazing. He stood gazing down on the motionless man. This man must have extraordinary vitality or he would have been dead by now, but then he was very young, perhaps not yet 25. So now the doctors, you can say ethics came out. Doctor के ethics बाहर आए. उसने कहा, Sadao questioned that what would be the implication if the man died, कि इस आदमी से मरने से तुम्हें क्या होगा. He looked down towards the injured man and wondered that that he had a lot of energy which had kept him alive through such torture. कि इस आदमी की इतनी एनर्जी है तभी इतने दिनों से बचा हुआ है. He counted his thought with the fact that the man was very young. He seemed to be 25 years of age, and at that age he seemed, वो कितना 25 years का लग रहा है, and that age people do not have a lot of energy. People do have a lot of energy. 25 years का है इसीलिए नहीं इसकी डेथ हुई. क्यों? क्योंकि he had a great stamina and energy. Okay? You mean die from the operation? Hannah asked him that. Did he mean the man could die during the operation? Sadao confirmed her question. हना ने पूछा कि क्या ये ऑपरेशन नहीं होगा या ऑपरेशन के दौरान मर जाएगा. Yes, सदाओ said हाँ शायद कि इफ़ ही वुड नॉट बी ऑपरेटेड अपॉन, अगर इसका ऑपरेशन नहीं हुआ तो शायद ये मर सकता है. Hannah considered this doubtfully, and when she did not answer Sadao turned away. At any rate, something must be done with him because he doctor hai. He said, and first he must be washed. He went quickly out of the room, and Hannah came behind him. She did not wish to be left alone with the white man. He was the first and she had seen since she left America, and now he seemed to have nothing to do with those whom she had known there. Here he was her enemy, a menace living or dead. A menace living or dead. Okay, so I would like to tell you over here that this year this question was asked in board exam. अभी 2020 का जो पेपर गया उसमें ये वाला क्वेश्चन आया था. एक्सप्लेन दिस लाइन. ही वॉज हर एनिमी, अ menace living or dead means what? Hannah was pondering over here. Hannah was pondering over this possibility and she was taking time to reply. Sadao left. Sadao चला गया. हना चाहती थी कि वो सदाओ को बोले कि नहीं तुमको इसका ऑपरेशन नहीं करना है. ओके, ही सेड इट समथिंग हैड टू बी डन विद द इंजर्ड मैन इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ द रिजल्ट, कि इसका हमें क्या करना है और रिजल्ट देखे बिना इसका ऑपरेशन करना है. ही माइट डाई ड्यूरिंग द ऑपरेशन और ही कुड डाई विदाउट ऑपरेशन. मीन्स ये ऑपरेशन के बिना भी मर सकता है और ऑपरेशन के मीन्स ड्यूरिंग भी जब ऑपरेशन चलेगा तब भी मर सकता है. Okay, the first thing was to wash him, but then he replied the first thing was to wash him. Okay, पहली बात ये है कि इसको नहलाना ज़रूरी है. As he walked out of the room, Hannah followed him. Okay, Hannah भी बाहर चली गई. She did not want to remain in the room alone with the white-skinned man. Since she had left America, and now he seemed to have nothing to do with those, means she had no contact with the Americans whom she had met as they were her enemies. Because Hannah उसके साथ में रुकना भी नहीं चाहती रूम में. Why? Because all the Americans were her enemies and are enemies. This injured man was also an enemy and was a threat to them. Okay, a menace living or dead means dead. Why? Dead also. Why? Because if he would die then it would be a question on सदाओ. अगर ये मरता है तो क्वेश्चन है सदाओ पे ड्यूरिंग ऑपरेशन. वाई? बिकॉज सदाओ वॉज अ सक्सेसफुल डॉक्टर. और अगर ये जिंदा रहता है देन दे वुड बी कॉट बाय पुलिस. then they would be caught by police. So in both condition he was a threat to them. So she turned to the nursery and called Yumi. So she turned to the nursery and called Yumi, but the children heard her voice and she had to go in for a moment and smile at them and play with the baby boy, now nearly 3 months old. Over the baby's soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth, Yumi, come with me. I will put the baby to bed. Yumi replied, he is ready. She went with Yumi into the bedroom next to the nursery and stood with a boy in her arms while Yumi spread these sleeping quilts on the floor and laid the baby between them. We know very well that Hannah and Sadao had 2 children. इनके 2 बच्चे हैं. Okay, so Hannah turned to the children's room and called out to Yumi. As the children heard her voice, अपनी मम्मा की आवाज़ सुन के जो बच्चे हैं वो क्या करने लग जाते, क्राई करने लग जाते. She went inside, smiled at them. वो हंसती है उनकी तरफ देख के and played with her 3-month-old son. And then she held the baby. और फिर उसने बेबी को अपने कहाँ मीन्स द बेबी हु हैड सॉफ्ट ब्लैक हेयर. शी मोशन विथ हर माउथ टू यूमी. वो क्या करती है, वो अपने बेबी को पैम्पर करती है और यूमी को बोलती है आस्किंग हर टू कम. देन यूमी रिप्लाइड, आई विल put the baby to bed? Yumi replied, he is ready. Okay. So Yumi replied that the baby was ready for the sleep and that she must put it to sleep before accompanying her. Okay. Hana held the baby and went to the bedroom next to the nursery with Yumi. Yumi के साथ में जाती है नर्सरी में. Nursery is a place. नर्सरी वो प्लेस होता है जहाँ हम क्या करते हैं, बच्चों को मीन्स रखते हैं. छोटे बच्चे जो होते हैं उनका जो प्लेस होता है, रूम इन ए हाउस फॉर द स्पेशल यूज़ ऑफ यंग चिल्ड्रन, वी कॉल इट नर्सरी. नर्सरी प्लांट्स के लिए भी यूज़ होता है, बट यहाँ यंग चिल्ड्रन को रखने के लिए वहाँ पे उसको हम नर्सरी कहते हैं. ओके. So as she held the baby, then Yumi spread the sleeping pills on the floor. देखो आप उनके घर में बेड नहीं है. Why? Because they followed the Japanese tradition and laid the baby between them. Okay. Then Hana led the way quickly and softly to the kitchen. The two servants were frightened at what their master had just told them. The old gardener, first of all, old gardener who was also a house servant, pulled a few hairs on his upper lip. The master ought not to. वो ओल्ड गार्डनर जो है वो वहाँ पे कंसर्न होता है और उसने क्या कहा? The master ought not to heal the wound of this white man. He said bluntly to Hana, the white man ought to die. First he was shot. Then the sea caught him and wounded him with her rocks. If the master heals what the gun did and what the sea did, they will take revenge on us. I will tell him what you say, Hana replied curtly. But she herself was also frightened, although she was not superstitious as the old man was. Okay. So over here, when Hana led the way as they walked first towards the kitchen, the two servants, already वहाँ पे दो servants हैं. ओके, ऑलरेडी वहाँ पे दो सर्वेंट्स हैं एंड दे वर मेकिंग कमेंट, और वो वहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हैं? कमेंट कर रहे हैं. ओके. द टू सर्वेंट्स इन द किचन वर स्केयर्ड आफ्टर हियरिंग देयर मास्टर्स वर्ड रिगार्डिंग द इंजर्ड मैन. ओल्ड गार्डनर ने सबसे पहले बोला, सबसे पहले ओल्ड गार्डनर, ये ओल्ड गार्डनर है, ये क्या कहता है? ओल्ड गार्डनर हु आल्सो वर्कड एज अ सर्वेंट वाज पॉन्डरिंग ओवर द न्यूज़ एंड पुलिंग द हेयर फ्रॉम हिज अपर लिप. कहता है द मास्टर, द ओल्ड गार्डनर स्पोक ब्लंटली टू हना. ही सेड दैट सदाओ मस्ट नॉट ट्रीट द इंजर्ड वाइट मैन, कि आप सदाओ को इसका ट्रीटमेंट नहीं करना चाहिए. रीजन दैट द मैन वाज मेड टू डाई, उसने कहा कि इस आदमी के डेस्टिनी में मरना लिखा है. फर्स्टली ही हैड बीन वुंडेड बाय गन शूट एंड सेकेंडली द रॉक्स ऑफ सी वुंडेड him further. Students, I have already cleared you that all Japanese means they were ready to kill any American. So every American was their enemy. Fine. So if if Sadao healed the wounds given by the gun and the sea, then the gun and the sea would treat them as enemies and seek revenge. तो बोले आपसे भी बदला लेंगे गन और sea. The gun represents the Japanese army. Gun का meaning क्या है? Japanese army. And the sea represents the country of Japan. If they treated the enemy, they would be punished by Japan. It was the view of Gardner. And आपको ये जो view है Gardner का, you have to learn it. आपको ये वाला view learn करना है. Okay, what did the Gardner say? I will tell him what you say. Hana ने reply किया बहुत ही means politely. Hana politely said to the Gardner that she would pass his message to Sadao. ओके. शी वॉज फ्राइटेंड दाउ नॉट सुपरस्टिशियस लाइक द ओल्ड मैन. वो भी डर गई, हालांकि वो सुपरस्टिशियस नहीं है, उसको भी डर लगने लगा कि कहीं हमसे जापानीज आर्मी और जो जापान है वो हमसे क्या ना ले, बदला ना ले. ओके. एंड शी थॉट दैट हेल्पिंग एन एनिमी कुड नेवर बी गुड फॉर दैम. एंड देन कुड इट एवर बी वेल टू Could it ever be well to help an enemy? Nevertheless, she told Yumi to fetch the hot water and bring it to the room where the white man was. She thought that helping an enemy could never be good for them. Hana knew it very well कि इसकी help करना हमारे लिए अच्छा नहीं है. Still, she asked Yumi to get hot water into the room where the injured man was kept. She went ahead and slid back the partitions. Sada was not yet there. Yumi, following, put down her wooden bucket. Then she went over to the white man. When she saw him, her thick lips folded themselves into stubbornness. I have never watched a white man, she said, and I will not watch so dirty a one now. Hana cried at her severely, you will do what your master commands you. There was no fierce a look of resistance upon Yumi's round dull face that Hana felt unreasonably afraid. After all, if the servants should report something that was not as it happened. Very well, she said with dignity, you understand, we only want to bring him to his senses so that we can turn him over as a prisoner. I will have nothing to do with it, Yumi said. I'm a poor person and it is not my business. Then please, Hannah said gently, return to your own work. At once, Yumi left the room, but this left Hannah with the white man alone. She might have been too afraid to stay had not her anger at Yumi's stubbornness now sustained her. So, now what happened? Hannah went inside first, and then she sat firmly. She sat firmly to Yumi. What? Hannah went inside first and moved the partition to one side. So that was not there. Okay, because she told Yumi to bring hot water where the injured man was kept. So that was not there. Yumi followed her and kept the wooden bucket on the floor. As she saw the white man, her thick lips folded. उसने अपने thick lips को क्या कर लिया? बिल्कुल fold कर लिया. Indicated her expression. उसने अपने determination expression को show किया. She said firmly that she had never washed an American man and that she would never wash one who was as dirty as that injured man. पहला post तो वो क्या है? Injured है और दूसरा moreover he was an American man. So she would not touch her. Hannah reacted to her Yumi's refusal. She screamed at her. वो उसके ऊपर चिल्लाती है. That she was supposed to follow her master order. Okay? But then what happened? Yumi registered strongly. Yumi ने विद्रोह किया and she saw her refusal. She showed her refusal. Her dull face had a dangerous look of protest, which scared Hannah. उसने इतना अपना dangerous face दिखाया. She was worried that, but over here, Hannah was worried. Hannah को डर लगने लगा. If the servants reported something different from what had happened, what had not happened, they could land into trouble. कि जो नहीं हुआ वो अगर वो बता देंगे या जो हुआ वो बता देंगे तो they could be in problem. Very well, she said with dignity. You understand, we only want to bring him to his senses. Then Hannah changed the expression to respect and said, very well. She would like to make Yumi understand that they intended to bring the unconscious man into his senses, and then they would hand him over as a prisoner. Fine. Then Yumi replied, I will have nothing to do with. मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. Yumi said that she was not concerned about their plans. She was not concerned about their plans. She added that she was a poor person and it was none of her business to know about their plans. Then please, Hannah ने कहा तुम यहाँ से चली जाओ. Return to your own work. And now Hannah left alone. अब Hannah जो है वहाँ क्या रह गई? अकेली. Okay. At once Yumi left the room. Hannah said to Yumi that then she should return to her work. कि तुम चली जाओ. Yumi left the room at once. Hannah was again left alone with the white man. She would have been afraid to remain there all alone. Hannah did not want to stay. Please note this line. Hannah did not want to stay. But Yumi's firm determination means she would like to show her superiority. हना यहाँ पे अपना सुपीरियर एटीट्यूड दिखाना चाहती है. मेड हर स्टे इन द रूम. Stupid Yumi, she muttered fiercely. Is this anything but a man and a wounded, helpless man? Hannah said with anger that Yumi was a stupid person. After all, what the servant said, she said that it was just an injured man. In the conviction of her own superiority, please note it down, in the firm belief. In the conviction of her own superiority, she bent impulsively and untied the knotted rugs that kept the white man covered when she had his breast bare. She dipped the small clean towel that Yumi had brought into the steaming hot water and washed his face carefully. The man's skin, though rough with exposure, was of a fine texture and must have been very blonde when he was a child. So Hannah was so full of anger at the refusal by maid Yumi that without thinking she opened the blanket in which the man was injured. अपना superiority दिखा रही है. His chest was bare. Hannah took a small clean towel, dipped it in the steaming hot water and washed his face. The man's skin was rough due to being exposed to the sun, but it had a good texture. Man की skin जो है वो अब क्या हो रही है? रब करने से यहाँ पे good texture उसका आ रहा है बिल्कुल. And he must have been very fair as a child. Then Hannah gave a thought. Yumi यहाँ से जा चुके. Hannah ने सोचा कि ये बचपन में बहुत ही स्मार्ट रहा होगा. ओके. While she was thinking these thoughts, though not really liking the man better now that he was no longer a child, she kept on washing him until his upper body was quite clean. But she dared not turn him over. There was Sadao. Now her anger was ebbing and she was anxious again, and she rose, wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Actually में हना जो है उसको टर्न नहीं कर पा रही और करना भी नहीं चाहती है. Then lest the man be chilled, she pulled the quilt over him. ओके उसके बैक पे उसका क्विल्ट डाल दिया. Sadao, she said, she called softly. He had been about to come in when she called. His hand had been on the door and now he opened it. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag, that he wore his surgeon's coat. Now we would see Hannah kept on cleaning the man's upper body as she had these thoughts. She did not like the man as he was not a child anymore. But still, she did not have the courage to turn him over. और वो सोचने लगी सदाव कहाँ है. And at that moment, her anger was decreasing. She started becoming restless. She stood up and wiped her hands with the wrong towel क्योंकि उसको गुस्सा आ रहा है. And she did not want the man to freeze due to cold weather. वो नहीं चाहती थी कि आदमी जो है उसको कुछ हो. Why? Because something was happened to her and she did not want the man to preach due to cold weather. She pulled the quilt on him. She showed her sympathy over here. Hannah called out to Sadao softly. Okay, and he had been on the door, or Sadao aa jata hai when she called him. He opened the door. Now, students, in my sixth video, I'll tell you that would Sadao save him or not? Okay, will he get success or not? We will see in the sixth video. Students, I would like to tell you one thing, that those students who are still not studying, please start studying, because see, time has wings and time waits for none. टाइम किसी का इंतज़ार नहीं करता है. सो प्लीज़ स्टडी एंड यू ऑल हैव टू रॉक इन योर बोर्ड एग्जाम. थैंक यू. हैव ए नाइस डे.